Karen with Classic Hardware, and today we're going to do tips and tricks with class and sass, and we're going to learn how to do a display frame. I found this old frame at a yard sale, and I'm basically going to gut it out and put a piece of foam on it covered in material so I can hang my jewelry on it. The supplies you'll need are a vintage frame of some sort. It can be much smaller than this. Some foam core that you can get in an art supply store, some foam, this is a half-inch foam, and some material to cover it. Here are the tools that you will need for this project. A metal yardstick is preferred for cutting the foam core, a T-square if you happen to have one, but not necessary, scissors for cutting the foam and the material, an X-Acto knife or a box cutter for cutting down the foam core, a pen for marking the foam core and or material, pliers for removing any additional hardware, glue, as well as duct tape. Okay, so you want to start by basically trying to gut out the original backing or get out the frame. So I'm just kind of pulling things up with the pliers and getting it to a point where I can just peel the whole thing off, hopefully. So I've removed the back on this frame, and in the case of this frame, there's some nails that somebody had hammered in, and you may have some of that, and you can either try to work with it to use it to secure the frame later, or you can remove them completely. The next step is we're going to measure the inside of the frame from end to end, top to bottom, width to width. And we're going to take those measurements and we're going to basically write them down. So, as you can see, the inside of this frame measures 24 inches, pretty much exactly. However, because I know that I'm going to cover the foam core with some material, I want to allow a little bit of compensation for that, and I'm going to make the length of the foam core be closer to 23 3/4 inches, and I'm going to do the same on the length as well. So I'm going to be, that way I'm in about 1/8 of an inch all the way around to allot for my putting material over it. Okay, so once you get your measurements, my measurements were 35 3/4 by 23 3/4. So I'm going to go the first measurement, which is 35 3/4, and the reason I use a T-square is to be able to help butt up my ruler against the board to keep that straight edge. So I mark the 35 3/4. And then I move the T-square along the hopefully straight edge, and I make a second mark, and I just continue doing that, and then I'll draw a straight line. Okay, so basically I've made a series of dots of where my markings should be, and now I'm taking the T-square again to try to get a straight edge. Again, if you don't have one, it's okay, but you might want to use your table as a guide. And now you want to, sometimes it doesn't always look like it's matching up perfectly, but you basically want to draw your line, and that's going to end up being your cut line. So now you've marked your line, you've got your ruler ready, you've got your blade, and you're going to need something underneath, like a piece of cardboard, so you don't cut into the table. So I'm ready to go, and really, really be careful with this. You want to hold this down with as much pressure as you can. And then you want to just start marking, or start the blade, and just stay very steady, and cut away. All right, and there you go. Okay, so now I've fit my piece in the back. I want to make sure that it fit and has a little bit of wiggle room. Now I'm actually going to need to take measurements for the foam that's going to go on top of this. And the foam, I'm actually going to measure from the inside of the frame here, and the foam will be smaller that will go on top of the foam core. So again, you're going to measure the inside of the frame in this because the foam is going to be sticking up a little bit. and coming out. So again, we want to make it a little bit smaller. So the inside of my frame measures at about 23 and about a quarter. So I'm actually going to take that down to 23 and an eighth on the one side, and then on this other side I'm going to do it at 35 and an eighth for my foam size. Okay, so same dealio as before. Like I mentioned, you need to measure the foam core. You can do the same thing where you follow the line and then draw a line. And as always, measure twice, cut once. Okay, so once you have all your measurements, you can easily cut the foam core down with a pair of scissors. Okay, so now we have our foam cut down and our foam core. Our foam is a slight bit smaller. We're going to center it, but first we're going to flip it over and we're going to put some glue on it. So you got all your glue on there, and then you're basically going to find the center, and you can line it up a little bit. Try to get it even to your eye and press it down. And if you want, you can put some books on it or some weights on it to let it set for a couple of hours. Okay, so you've got your glued down foam on your foam core. Now you're going to take your piece of material. You're going to use your foam core foam board as a template, and you're basically going to be cutting out some material. With this, you can eye it more or less. I like to do about 3 inches around all the sides. So basically you can cut a mark. And again, if you want to mark it off like we did before, you can, and then we're going to cut away. Okay, so I've got my material cut out, and now I want to take off some of the excess on the corners so that it creates less bulk. So I draw a line. And I don't go all the way to the end of the corner, because I don't really want it to peek through necessarily. You can kind of eye this if you want, and I basically cut away. Now you have your corners cut, you have everything laid out and ready to go. You're going to take one side of the material and you're going to pull it taut. And I usually like to take some masking tape to try to help me pull the piece, which I didn't mention earlier. So. And then basically, then I'll go to the other side and also pull at it. And then I'm going to go for different angles and try to line it up and get it ready to put my duct tape on it. Okay, so I went around and I put a bunch of masking tape and I was pulling it taut the entire time so that it'll have this nice, beautiful, smooth effect when you look at the right side up. And now I'm just going to seal the deal with the duct tape that I talked about in the beginning. So take your duct tape and you can cut it in maybe 1-foot strips, and I'm just using it to pretty things up and secure the area a bit more. So you just go around the entire piece and line up some duct tape. It's the back anyways, but this again is for security and is going to hold down the masking tape that I forgot to tell you about in the beginning. Okay, so once we put the duct tape on, this is what it looks like, and it looks nicer, and it also strengthens it. And here's the front, and now we're going to put it back in our frame. So we popped the frame in. It was quite snug and quite tight, so you do want to be mindful when you're doing it. That you want to make sure you left a little bit of looseness. Now I'm bending the nails back in, and however, we talked about there's a good chance you're not going to have those. So in that case, what we've done in the past is at this line we want to duct tape over. And I'm going to put a piece of duct tape just for protection because there's some little nails sticking up and I don't want anyone to hurt themselves while moving this. So we'll get to that in a minute. Okay, so there she is. So as you can see, we put lots of duct tape on it, because as we mentioned, it really helps seal it in, and you may not have had the nails sticking up like we did. And there's the reveal. So you can hang it this way on your wall or this way. Now you're probably going to want to get some pieces to hang it unless you put it on a display stand. So it just depends how you want to put it in your store or on your wall at home. So now that we have this foam backing, it makes it very easy to take what are known as U-pins and push them into the foam and put your pendants and your pieces on here how you like. You can use straight pins, however they don't necessarily grab as well, and this helps it stick on there. And this is our finished frame. Voila!